Imagine a world where your youth, your freedom, and your voice are stolen from you. A world where you become a forgotten footnote in a history that others desperately want to rewrite. This isn't a dystopian novel. This was the reality for hundreds of thousands of girls and young women during World War II, forced into a system of sexual slavery by the Imperial Japanese Army. They are known as comfort women, a euphemism that masks an unspeakable horror. For decades, their story was buried, their voices silenced, and their suffering denied. Today, we're going to uncover the truth Japan tried to erase. This isn't just about the past. It's about justice, memory, and the enduring power of the human spirit to speak out, even when the world refuses to listen. Let's travel back to the 1930s and 40s. The Japanese Empire was expanding across Asia. To service its vast army, the military established a network of what they called comfort stations. These were, in reality, military brothels. But the women and girls who filled them were not there by choice. They were deceived, abducted, and coerced from countries under Japanese occupation, primarily from Korea, but also from China, the Philippines, Indonesia, and several other nations. They were promised jobs in factories or as nurses. Some were simply kidnapped from their homes or villages. The youngest were barely teenagers. They were trapped in a brutal system, forced to endure violence day after day. Their names were taken, their identities stripped away, and they were treated as nothing more than military supplies. These comfort stations were not a rogue operation. They were a highly organized, state-sponsored system. The Imperial Japanese Army managed every aspect, from transportation and housing to setting the rules and fees. The goal was to prevent the spread of diseases among soldiers, and in their chilling logic, to reduce assaults on local civilian populations by containing the violence within these stations. This official involvement is a crucial point, and it's the very thing that the Japanese government has struggled to fully and sincerely acknowledge for decades. Documents unearthed over the years clearly show the military's direct hand in creating and running this horrific network. It was a calculated, institutionalized system of abuse on a massive scale. After Japan's surrender in 1945, the nightmare didn't end. For the survivors, the war was over, but their personal battles had just begun. Many were abandoned at the comfort stations, far from home, with no money and no way to return. Those who did make it back were often met with shame and silence. In many conservative Asian societies at the time, the stigma surrounding their experience was immense. They were seen as spoiled or unclean. Fearing ostracization from their own families and communities, most survivors buried their trauma and lived in silence for decades. They carried their physical and psychological scars alone, their stories locked away, while the world moved on, largely ignorant of what they had endured. The silence was deafening, and it allowed denial to take root. Everything changed in 1991. A brave Korean woman named Kim Hak-sun stepped forward. She was the first survivor to publicly testify about her experience as a comfort woman. Her courageous act shattered nearly half a century of silence. She spoke of being forced into service at 17, describing the horrors she endured. Her testimony was a bombshell. It opened the floodgates, inspiring other survivors across Asia to come forward and share their own stories. These grandmothers, now in their later years, decided they would not go to their graves in silence. They wanted the world to know what had happened to them. They weren't just seeking personal vindication, they were demanding historical justice. Their voices created a powerful movement. In Seoul, survivors began holding weekly demonstrations in front of the Japanese embassy. Every Wednesday, rain or shine, they would gather, demanding a formal apology, legal compensation, and the correction of historical records from the Japanese government. These Wednesday demonstrations have become one of the longest-running protests in the world, a powerful symbol of their resilience and unwavering demand for justice. These women, known as halmonis, The Korean word for grandmother became global human rights activists. Their fight resonated around the world, bringing international attention to their cause and putting immense pressure on Japan. So, how has Japan responded over the years? The official stance has been a complex and often contradictory journey of partial apologies, ambiguous statements, and frustrating reversals. In 1993, the Kono Statement acknowledged the military's involvement and the coercive nature of the comfort women's system, offering sincere apologies and remorse. However, this was not backed by formal, direct compensation from the government, which insisted that all war-related claims were settled by post-war treaties. Instead, a private fund was set up, which many survivors rejected as an attempt to evade official state responsibility. Over the years, influential Japanese politicians and nationalist groups have repeatedly tried to downplay or deny the historical facts, causing immense pain to the survivors and fueling diplomatic tensions with South Korea and China. The issue remains a deeply sensitive point of contention today. In 2015, Japan and South Korea reached a final and irreversible agreement, where Japan offered an apology and contributed to a foundation for the survivors. However, the deal was highly controversial. It was negotiated without consulting the survivors themselves, many of whom felt their voices were once again ignored. They argued that it failed to establish clear legal responsibility. The fund was later dissolved by South Korea's subsequent administration, and the issue remains a major obstacle in relations between the two countries. The core of the problem persists, a lack of a sincere, unequivocal apology that is accepted by the majority of the victims and reflected in Japan's own history education. Today, only a handful of these brave grandmothers are still alive. Time is running out. Their fight is now a race against time, a desperate plea to have their history properly acknowledged and remembered before the last living witness is gone. Memorials, often called statues of peace, depicting a young girl in traditional dress, have been erected around the world by civic groups to honor the victims and ensure their story is not forgotten. Yet even these memorials have become points of diplomatic conflict, with Japan often protesting their installation. The battle is no longer just about the past. It's about how we remember it. It's about ensuring that future generations learn from this history so that such atrocities are never repeated. Why is this story so important for us to remember today? Because the fight of the comfort women is a universal fight for human rights. It's a story about the devastating impact of war on women, the power of testimony, and the importance of historical justice. It teaches us that peace is not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. Forgetting their story is to be complicit in the silence that trapped them for so long. By listening to their voices and sharing their history, we honor their courage and affirm a fundamental truth. No one's suffering should be erased from history. Their legacy is a powerful reminder to stand against denial and fight for the truth, no matter how painful it may be. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please share it so that the voices of these grandmothers continue to be heard. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more important stories from our shared past.